Hey everyone, thank you for sending me your questions for what is the first of hopefully many Q&A sessions. I'm looking forward to answering some of the stuff you guys gave, and I appreciate you taking the time. I put the questions in 3 different categories, and I'm going to try to answer them in order of like timeline, historical timeline, so that maybe they can bleed into one another and connect and all that stuff. So I'm going to start with um, Black Lab, the band, past, present, future, questions in that category. And we're going to start in the past. And we're going to start with Nicholas Matera. What was it like working with David Bianco? And are there any recording tricks or ideas you got from him? So David Bianco was a Grammy Award winning engineer. He passed recently, which was pretty unfortunate, but he was great to work with on our first record, Your Body Above Me. And we hired Dave because he was this amazing engineer. He'd worked with pretty much every huge band, either in a live capacity or working as Rick Rubin's primary engineer. We didn't hire him so much because he was a strong producer, but because he was such a great recording and mixing engineer. We really wanted to produce the record. I'd spent hundreds and hundreds of hours recording all our rehearsals to DAT, and then combing through it and picking the piece of a verse where Michael's guitar was really great, or where Michael and Jeff were doing something super cool in the rhythm section, and kind of putting those on cassette and then handing them out to everybody saying, hey, this is a really great part, let's go with this here, or what we did here in this improvisation could be integrated in some way. So in a way, a lot of the production and arrangement had been done in advance. So we just wanted an amazing engineer, and Dave was that. In terms of tips and tricks or whatever, I don't remember that much, and frankly, at the time, I was not very knowledgeable about sound engineering or what even was happening. But the thing that really did make a big impression on me and had a big impact on the recording sessions for the first album was the fact that Dave brought in a bunch of his own compressors and he chained them up, and he basically recorded things to sound huge in a way that they were going to sound once he was done mixing them. So he kind of made a lot of choices right up front. He was going to mix the record. He knew how he wanted the snare drum to sound. He knew how he wanted the guitars and the vocals to sound. So he just recorded things that way right, up front. He would just smash things going right to tape. The consequence of this was that throughout the 8 or 10 week recording process, the drums always sounded amazing because Dave had recorded them to sound amazing from the get-go. And so we always had amazing, fully compressed drums to work with. And when I say compress, that's how our ears work with. I can hear like little light thing happening in the other room, but if I'm in a room with a snare drum at 100 decibels, my ears will make that quiet sound loud and the loud sound quiet. And that's a process of compression, and it changes the way things sound when you compress them. And what I didn't know then, because I was young and inexperienced, was that a lot of times recording engineers, they just record things flat. They just get a neutral recording of things, so that then the mixing engineer can add compression and all kinds of tricks to make that amazing sound that we like to hear when we hear recorded music. All of those tricks that help replicate in a recording what we hear when we hear a live band. But what Dave did is he didn't want us to be working with flat, lifeless, neutral, properly recorded tracks. He wanted us to be working with stuff that sounded amazing, and that's what I really took away from him, and that's what I try to do when I produce bands or other artists. I try to make what they're hearing in their headphones, whether it's the drums or the guitars or their own voice, sound amazing. So I stack compressors, EQ, reverb, delay. I make that sound amazing so that when they put headphones on, they feel the confidence. This is why people sing in the shower, or if you're in an empty church, or in a dome or a tunnel or something. It's like that amazing reverb, and the reflection of your voice coming back on you is really inspiring. And so I try to always do that for myself when I put the headphones on and get to work here. And really, I got that from Dave. And I was, frustrated for years producing records myself, because I would go into a studio with an amazing drummer, Matt Chamberlain, or, the best drummers in the world, a great studio, great engineer, and it just would not sound good. It just didn't sound inspiring. And I was like, what's wrong? And it's because I just didn't know that I didn't understand. I hadn't put it together at the time, just what Dave had done in those sessions. And so that's what I would say about Dave Bianco. Rest in peace. What has been the biggest surprise on tour with Black Lab? Hope you had a good time in Nashville. Oh, this is from Jeremy. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for hosting me. I had a great time playing your private show, and it was awesome to meet you and your friends. And what's the biggest surprise on tour? Oh, well, you guys know I'm not exactly Mr. Sunshine, so okay, well, I'll talk about a few things that were surprising. How exhausted I was, how exhausting it was to tour. I mean, I know we all have this experience of, like, you go on a vacation and then you go back and you're like, oh man, I need like a few days to recover from my vacation. But like, tour is just like nonstop. It's just relentless, exhausting, emotional output, combined with incredible periods of boredom and nothing to do. And so, I remember being on stage in Florida in front of 70,000 people, and starting Wash It Away, and the crowd just going crazy. They'd all heard it on the radio. It was at a radio festival, and just thinking, I just want to go home. I just want to be at home in my own bed. I was just so tired. And that was surprising, because I just thought like the adrenaline of the experience would be a kind of nonstop party. And I will say, the first 10 days of a tour is the greatest. I mean, it's just the greatest thing in the world. It's the greatest thing in the world. But it's like that runs out, and the exhaustion really gets to you. So that was surprising. I would say one of the things that's been so surprising about doing the house concert kind of shows that we've done more recently is just, connecting with people and how rich that can be. You'd think, we're not total random strangers. We do share one thing, which is the music of Black Lab, but still, when I do go play house concerts for people, it's just very cool to hang out and get to know people and connect. So that's surprising. And what else is surprising? All right, I'll say one more negative thing. And that is, one of the biggest surprises to me was being backstage at radio festivals. Back there with Green Day and Third Eye Blind and, Foo Fighters, and all the other bands that were kind of coming up at around that time, late 90s. And it was always amazing to me how, when everybody's backstage at a radio festival, like eating the free food and drinking the free drinks, and there weren't individual green rooms a lot of time. It was often just one big room where you waited to go on, and you might be in your bus, but you spent so much time on your bus anyway. You didn't want to be there. You wanted to be socializing, and it was very like high school. It was kind of sad. It was very like it, and like the popular kids were the kids that had sold the most records, and I was like, man, this feels so familiar, and I felt myself just disconnecting from all of it the same way that I had just disconnected in high school, and I just felt myself feeling very punk rock because I was like, man, fuck all of this. So anyway, sad but true. I don't want to shatter anybody's myths about the glories of being on the road, but it definitely had its ups and downs. All right. Andrew Miles asks, did Geffen or Epic show much support, patience back in the 90s, or try to get you guys to do a gimmicky song or a soloist video with half-naked women? I would say that we made the deals that we made because we were making them with people who were going to let us do what we wanted to do. When we signed to Geffen, Geffen was the primo label. It was the boutique major label. It had, Nirvana, Sonic Youth. My friend Adam from Counting Crows had just signed to Geffen and was like, yeah, man, this is the Cadillac of major labels. So when we had the chance, we signed with Geffen, or rather I signed with Geffen at that point because my band had kind of been dissembled. And yeah, I signed with Geffen because I was very headstrong. I was arrogant, you could say, or you would say if you knew me then. I was aggressive, and I knew what I wanted, and I didn't want anybody else trying to dictate or define anything other than what I wanted. So I knew that Geffen was used to working with people like that, with artists like that. I knew that they had a very artist-centric perspective. And so, no, they didn't try to force anything down our throat, they came to us and said, we think Wash It Away would be a great first single. And we were like, cool, we don't really know about that, so that's fine. But, we chose our producer, we chose where to record, we chose what songs to record. There was very little direction. Jim Barber, our A&R guy, was just super supportive. There's times looking back in which I wish there had been more direction. I wish that some of the people there had sat me down and said, look, man, this is how the music business works, or this is where you need to be positioned, or this is how you can help yourself out. But I also know, when I'm honest, that I wouldn't have listened to any of them because I just assumed that I knew better. And, yeah, I was just completely convinced of my own rightness on pretty much every issue. I think if you ask Jeff and Michael, that's the guy they had to work with at the time. And that's the guy that everybody had to work with at the time. I remember going in and talking to the head of promotion and insisting that this song was not going to be the single, that in fact this song was going to be the single. And, it was probably a mistake, but, it was a blessing and a curse because I was both extremely driven, extremely aggressive, not taking no for an answer. Anybody who didn't, believe in me was an idiot, and I was just relentless. And so that was kind of the upside of it because, it did allow me to overcome tremendous obstacles and to kind of fearlessly push forward in this vision I had. But, I wrote our video. It got adapted at some point, but You know, yeah, if anything, it was the opposite. You know, my buddy did our photo shoot for Epic, you know, and, you know, so if anything, it was the opposite, as opposed, you know, if anything, I probably had too much creative control given the level of experience and knowledge of the situation that I had. So that's how that was. I hope that's a thorough answer. Michael or on. Hey, Michael. I always wondered about the Time Ago music video. Do you have any interesting memories or stories from the production? Man, that video was crazy. They spent so much money, and oh, you know, it's funny because you look back, and on the one hand, I have a lot of regrets about things I didn't, know about, and that I kind of let slide, and just trusting that other people had, other people knew stuff. Like, I'll tell you a funny story about this video. So I had kind of sketched out this video, and then the director had kind of taken it and done a bunch of creative stuff with it, which I thought was cool. And I was like, my one pet peeve about seeing bands on stage is that they always look so primped and like they're not sweating. It was the thing I hated about music videos is the bands always looked like they just come out of hair and makeup, and that they weren't sweating. And my experience on stage was being in front of intense lights and getting off stage completely drenched in sweat. And I was just like, I just wanted to look like we're actually playing a show. So I said this to the makeup person, and they're like, "Oh, well, we can give you some stuff to make you look like you're sweating, right?" This is the kind of thing that this is the kind of insight that a director should have. Like, I should have gone to the director and said this, not to the makeup person, because if the director wants the band to look sweaty, then that's part of a whole overall conception. And first of all the people in the band need to look sweaty, not just the singer. Second of all, that's something that needs to be screen tested, not just like you show up at the moment where it's time, everything's in place to shoot the scene, and the hair and makeup person has put Vaseline on your face or whatever it is that they put on my face. But anyway, the lip syncing shots in that video feature me looking extremely glossy and slick, slippery and shiny, and not like I'm sweating, but actually like I'm covered in silicone gel or something weird. So I've always disliked that about the video. But in general, I thought it was pretty freaking fun. I will say that when you see the telephone booth shots and you see me walking through the desert, see, I thought we were going to go out to the desert and like maybe take a telephone booth and put it in the desert. But that's not what they did. What they did is they brought in like 12 truckloads of sand, and they built a desert in the parking lot of the studio. And then I guess they scooped all that sand up and took it away. But for probably 5 seconds worth of video, if even that, they brought in a whole desert to this soundstage parking lot. And it was insane. Just one of the many moments that I look back in my life and wish, like, man, I wish they would have just given me the cash. We could have done without the phone booth in the desert shot. That wasn't gonna make or break the Time Ago single. But no, it was cool. It was cool. It was cool hanging out with models. It was cool being on a set. It was cool just kind of interfacing with really our first like Hollywood kind of environment with tons of PAs and people running down and around. And so I don't know. I can't really think of anything else. So that's probably enough for now. Thank you for your patience. I got a bunch more questions, so I'm going to make more of these. And I hope you guys are well. And thanks for your time. Talk to you soon.